Hey, John.
Oh, hey, fall has come to Oklahoma City. It's cold here. Well,
We've
it's in the 60s, but yeah,
well,
for
we've
us it's
had we've had our first hard frost. We've had our hard frost this morning.
stay away. My whole house, my wonderful bungalow here in Oklahoma City. People see in the intro is the electrical. We're like knob and tube wiring here, and we're coming to pieces. Our
Ah,
heater's not working right now, so
okay.
yeah. So I got my sweater on.
Yeah.
I got my sort of hat on. I should look for my Arsenal hat, but anyway. So it's cold times here, but boy, things are hot at the Hogwarts Professor Substack site. We are, we did the
Aren't
ring
they just?
composition first part.
Yeah.
Got some great feedback for that. We'll have some questions and other people's charts to talk about here. But the big deal is that we had our conversation with Demetra Feeney, and boy, people like Demetra. We're gonna maybe we have to
Well,
bring her on to
who can,
staff. This
I
is
mean,
this is
who can blame them? What a wonderful conversation.
we'll talk some about that, some of the feedback
Yeah.
to Demetra's comments. Really wonderful, and people have said such wonderful things. All the wonderful things you shared about that conversation. Of course, I forwarded to Demetra, and she thanks everybody that took time to write and to listen what was it, 2 hours? I mean, it was
Nearly, yeah,
um,
yeah.
people some for someone who shall not be named said to me, John, usually I see 2 hour film and I'm just like, no, I'm not gonna, who's got time for that? He says, oh, I started listening and it's the 2 hours. It was gone. And that's the way certainly it felt on this side of things. I mean, we had our questions, but we could have talked all night. Anyway, so here's the thing. I was going to do my names thing, and I am working on the names post. I
Yeah.
even pulled down my favorite book on names and English literature, Literary
Okay.
Names by Alistair Fowler. Alistair Fowler, of course, is the man who wrote Triumphal Forms, which is really a great guide to chiasmus and English literature. He was a student of C.S. Lewis's. He's also a big Spencer scholar. This guy is a guy you want to know if you're a serious striker. I'll put the link to that in the post about names. But I was going through the activity to make sure I haven't missed. We get every comment in our inbox, but I wanted to go through and see the stuff that I knew I wanted to respond to. And one of them I was so excited about was right before we did the Ring and the Demetra recordings. And I said, oh, as soon as we're done, this is so good. As soon as we're done, we'll have to do a talk just about this theory and a few other things. And so we're obliged to do that. But and it's largely about incest, Nick, because we just love incest here at High Worship. Not only do we invite lawsuits, but conversations about crime, sexual perversion, stuff like that. Yeah, that's where we live. All right, so um, seriously, golden threads now turn into something like oh well. There's a lot of weird stuff there. I wanted to talk to you before I did that about something you shared with me last week, and that is that Hogwarts Professor, the Substack, we have subscribers in 36 countries.
We
Nick, I don't know
are,
how long it would take me to name 36 countries.
yeah, well, but we keep increasing. So I think we're up to 40 countries now. Um, there's some I'd like to call out. Obviously, there is UK and the US are overrepresented. We are
Over? What
almost,
do you mean? Anyway, we
but
love our
but
UK and US friends
of
here,
course,
overrepresented.
of course, we are largely unknown in the continent of Africa. But I'd like to give a special shout out to our subscriber in Kenya. We appreciate you. Um, we have a few subscribers we know by name, so we know our subscriber from Argentina, and
Right.
I'd like to give a special shout out to our 12 subscribers in the Netherlands. For such a small country, I think that's doing noble service.
Well, and our subscriber in Switzerland
Yes,
just started to join. He or she just joined the conversation last week. But how about this? We're in 46 United States.
yes,
Um,
and that is incredible. It's almost every state in the union.
You
We
know
are
where we're weak though. We're
sorry.
weak in one specific spot of the United States.
Well, yeah,
The
there's two. So, but North and South Dakota, nobody is subscribed to us yet. So, if you have friends or family in North and South Dakota, please get in touch. And also Idaho and Nevada, we've got no subscribers there.
It's really
Calif
disappointing. Those are heavily, Mormon states. I would think that they would love what we do here, but oh well. That's
yeah,
the anyway, I have friends in Nevada. I've got a
okay,
friend in South Dakota. I'm gonna have to, dial these people up and say, really? You're
yeah.
keeping us from a full 50? Come
But
on.
I tell you what, those Texans and those crazy Californians, they absolutely love us.
What I love is peak red and peak blue there for
Yeah,
us, How many, and there must be a lot of New Yorkers too. Those are the most populated, United States. But all right. But how about this? That we're in the top 20 in the literature fiction category on Substack.
yeah,
Did you see
yes.
that?
So that's categorized by fastest growing sites. So
Oh, okay. Well, it's
and
like
if
there's
you
no way we're in the top 20 of these
well
sites. But
if you look at our subscriber list and the rate at which it's growing, that is incredible. You look at our traffic statistics, and not just on Substack. So you look at the every video that we shoot here and put up on Substack, we rebroadcast it twice because we're greedy. We send it out as a
I think the
podcast.
word is lazy, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, we send it out as a podcast. So they don't get to look at our beautiful faces, but even so, we're up to 17,000 downloads now. We had a daily record last week with Professor Femi's conversation of 200 downloads on the day that we broadcast that. We also rebroadcast on YouTube. So our audience there is growing. We're at nearly 2,000 hours viewed in YouTube, and our subscriber list is growing there as well.
This though, we get to see, when the subscribers come in, every
Yeah,
subscriber that comes in, we get to see. We should probably do something. I don't even know what people are sent when they subscribe to us. So they get it. They get a, hello from us or anything. What are they? Anyway,
we need to
one of
look.
the
We need to look at that.
it tells the source of where people got their recommendation from.
Yeah,
And one came in yesterday or last night. It said recommended by ChatGPT.
GBT.
GBT. That's artificial intelligence, right?
That is artificial intelligence. So the plastic brain is now recommending the Hogwarts professor,
Is that a
why
good thing or a
not?
bad thing, Nick? What does that mean?
I I think that so the way that generative AI works is it sucks up basically what anyone is writing and publishing on the internet. So the more of a conversation that is generated, so all the comments we get on Substack, all of the views we get on YouTube will go into their algorithm. So if somebody asks a question about chiastic theory or about classical allegory or about, dare I say it, Cormoran strike, uh, then a generative AI like ChatGPT will give an answer, and not ChatGPT, but many of the other AIs will also give links for the sources of where they've got their information, and all of those can generate leads for our site.
I'm not sure I'm happy about that, but oh well. I mean, hello to all those people that are using AI to learn more about Cormoran strike. I mean, I guess that's a commonplace now.
Yeah, yeah.
All right,
It's
but wait a minute.
in engineering, it's distressingly common, because ChatGPT, when you're trying to do something precise, can give you such bad answers. You have to check everything it says.
Well, unlike Cormoran strike, in which they get us, which is phenomenal.
It is whatever we say is definitive. Yeah, of course.
Well, speaking of definitive news, Nick, where
Yeah.
is Mrs. Murray?
Okay, so I can answer
where's
that,
Waldo?
John.
Where's
I can
Waldo
answer
Murray
that
here?
definitively. We definitively do not know. So I have good reason to believe, at least up until last Friday, she was in or around Fiji. So that I don't know that, but I've got good reason to believe she was in or around Fiji. However, I have a better reason to believe earlier on this week she was at the Harry Potter studios in Leavesden. Now, that's her first visit for the new production of Harry Potter to the film studios. So there was an article in Deadline, which isn't a gold standard news source, but I think this was accurate. And they have a source who says that she visited the film studios as they were filming the new series of Harry Potter for the first time. It was treated a little bit like a royal visit. It was very carefully staged managed. All of the studio executives came down to witness the presence and make sure that she was comfortable and she was happy with everything that was going on. So I think she's back in the country. Is my quick answer to that.
I was going to say, Nick, that's a heck of an apparition.
Yeah.
Fiji to Leavesden Studios. Anyway, that's wonderful that she's back, but she hasn't been tweeting, has she?
No. So still radio silence from J.K. Rowling.
We should have a count by the end of the year of how many days she tweeted and how many days she took off. Because this is maybe the longest spell of the year, isn't it? I mean, she had one break, maybe when she before she was in Fiji, she was in another South Pacific place, right?
She was in Bora Bora.
Okay. Phew. Now maybe you could do the magical thing between Fiji and Bora Bora, but I don't see it between that and Leavesden Studios. Anyway. All right, so maybe the boat has just gone on to Fiji and she flew back from Bora Bora.
I think that's likely. Yeah.
All right. Anyway, so I've burned up here 10-15 minutes just chatting away about things. But yeah, all those people that have little pins on their maps about where the presence is right now, we have her back safely in the UK, working, we hope, on Strike 9.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe even the presence listened to Dimitra Fimi? I think she would really love Dimitra Fimi.
I think if she hasn't listened to it yet, if somebody is in contact with the presence, I would recommend it. It was a great conversation.
Yeah. Anyway, she has so much in common with her, and such a delightful woman and scholar. All right. But that was the woman that's, was my external. I think I called her the exterior reader, and she never corrected me. It's the external reader. Someone outside the university, granting the degree or offering the degree. Anyway, it was great that my Viva reader and savior agreed to come on the show. All right. Let's jump right in. Here's the post, Nick. I'm gonna. Okay. This is from this. Do you pronounce this name Jacqueline or Jaslyn?
So I would pronounce that Jacqueline.
Jacqueline, me too. Okay. Yeah. Jacqueline Hayes wrote. She wrote about in response to a post about Patricia Fleetwood having appeared in Lethal White, and how that was an interesting connection with Rupert Fleetwood, who of course is in the Hallmark Man. Now. Jacqueline goes into, she offers as a fact that Lethal White mirrors the Hallmark Man. Obviously, it would be the reversed, but Hallmark Man mirroring Lethal White.
Yeah.
I want to hear more about that, because from what we've talked about, the Hallmark Man mirrors every series so far. Yeah. But there are, she says it makes sense that important plot themes points, themes, characters in Hallmark would be introduced in Lethal White. So she says it's a possible reference to Rupert Fleetwood in Lethal White as well. Jacqueline writes, Izzy gets a voicemail at the office from a man named Rupert asking her to call back about the AGM. Now, Nick, I think that means the annual general meeting. That's like bureaucrat speak for the annual general meeting.
Yeah.
Anyway, she said, I'm not sure what the acronym stands for, but what are the chances JQR would just casually drop two characters named Rupert and Fleetwood in the book that we know mirrors Hallmark Man? Now, again, I think she may have been reading too many here's how the whole series holds together theories, but we haven't got the whole series. But yeah, she thinks there's something there. That's interesting. But then Jacqueline she says the Ted incest theories are fascinating, but I'm more inclined to believe that the incest plot in the Hallmark Man, that's with Decima and Rupert, parallels a currently unbeknownst to us incest plot between Charlotte and Cormoran that is first hinted at in Lethal White. She says, I'm so hooked on this theory, I could write a freaking dissertation on it, based partly on the awesome post at the Hogwarts Professor blog. But for the sake of brevity, and here she goes. Hold on to your seats, folks. I think Charlotte this is Jacqueline talking. I think Charlotte was blackmailed via the threat of exposing the relatedness between her and Cormoran into marrying Diego to provide him a male heir. Perhaps their relatedness is even an open secret in Charlotte's family, similar to the secret relatedness of Decima and Rupert in Hallmark Man, another parallel. Charlotte was forbidden from telling Cormoran about the blackmail, but since she's conniving and obsessed with him, she uses their unexpected encounter at the Paralympics gala to drop hints about her predicament, hoping he'll solve the mystery and save her or take her back once she's fulfilled the terms of her marriage birth agreement with Diego. She then orchestrates another encounter with Cormoran to drop more hints, this time at Franco's, which she knows will trigger the memory of her father's outrage at seeing her and Cormoran dating again. She hopes Cormoran will realize her father was angry because he knew they were related, not simply because he thinks Cormoran wasn't good enough for her. She then tells Cormoran things would be different if he'd taken the job her father would offer him, calling to mind the job that Tara Campbell, whatever, Tara of the 17 names, gives Rupert Fleetwood to keep him quiet in the Hallmark Man, and says she found out she was pregnant at Tara's house and later lost, and Jacqueline adds in parentheses, not aborted the baby. Perhaps that pregnancy test was the straw that broke the camel's back, triggering a forced abortion and the blackmail plot to protect the family's second incest secret. The Hallmark Man certainly does a great job of painting Tara as a villain without a motherly bone in her body, and as you all pointed out, the Hallmark Man includes the awkward suggestion from Charlotte that her and Cormoran may be half-siblings because Tara slept with Rokeby and possibly Bloom, if you subscribe to that paternity theory. Tara really has to get around for that. But anyway, Charlotte clearly doesn't mind the idea. Perhaps that's Bloom of what's the band's name, Nick?
Blue Oyster Cult.
Blue Oyster Cult, yeah. Charlotte clearly doesn't mind the idea. Perhaps she already knows it is true, but she notices Cormoran is disturbed, remembering how she can always tell what he's thinking, ... And she fears he'd leave her forever, like Rupert does in Hallmark Man, if she told him the truth. By the time I finished the Hallmark Man, I was convinced the purpose of the Rupert Decima incest plot was to show Cormoran and Robin being understanding and sympathetic to their accidental incest predicament, opening the door to them accepting the truth about Cormoran and Charlotte when it is revealed in books 9 or 10. Interestingly, Jacqueline concludes, I don't think the Charlotte Cormoran incest theory and Ed's Murphy dirty bomb theory are mutually exclusive. The DNA test from Bijou could be the result of someone trying to prove the Charlotte incest theory. Perhaps Murphy was tipped off by Charlotte before she died and wants to prove their relatedness to hurt Cormoran's public reputation and eligibility in Robin's eyes. Now, I'm not sure how that works because, well, we'll talk about this. Robin told Murphy that Cormoran and Bijou were dating, So if he found out about Bijou's pregnancy, he could have pushed the rumor of Cormoran's possible paternity and then either blackmailed or plotted with Bijou to get a sample of his DNA. Assuming Murphy has access to DNA evidence from the Met's investigation into Charlotte's suicide, she puts those in scare quotes, he could manage to prove their relatedness that way. Of course, Murphy could have gotten Cormoran's DNA in plenty of other ways, but then he'd face the problem of convincing a forensic expert to analyze a random sample unassociated with any Met investigation when he's already on thin ice and under scrutiny at the Met. The advantage of using a 23andMe type test like Bijou appeared to use is that he can get the genetic lineage information he needs without arousing suspicion. She concludes, thanks for reading. I'm very grateful to everyone in this community for their openness and kindness in exploring these wild theories. And Ed Shardlow, that is, and Tam Spells, will checked in on this theory. Now, I've already bored people with my reading the whole thing out loud. Dick, what do you think of this this idea?
So there's people, I'm sure, are going to say, but they've already used that plot. How can we repeat that? We've already had that plot. But what I like about this is we've already said that the Hallmark Man is essentially a clip show. It is Robert Galbraith's greatest hits, books 1 to 7. How great would it be also not just a retrospective of the previous 7, but it presages the next 2. So we expect repeated plots. In this book of bridges is a bridge between the complete cycle of the first 7 and the 2 novels of the denouement. I think actually repeated themes and repeated plots would work quite well. All of them calling back to book 8.
And the Ur novel of the series, which is the Silkworm. Yeah. The novel inside the novel has exactly that. Has themes that just are repeated from Owen Quine's previous work. Yeah. And if that really is our touchstone novel, is one that Rowling said it was the origin of the conception of the whole Strike series is in that book. And it makes sense. It's a book about books with a book in it. It's really booky. That would be the book you'd want as a reference. And so the objection that we can't do Decima Rupert again, well, that means, Decima and Rupert were already a repeat of all the incest we've been seeing in the series so far. Incest comes up at least every other book in the series, and especially violence. And forgive me, I think forgive me. I think incest is violence, no matter when it happens. So sibling violence is and incest is, if not a golden thread throughout all of Rowling's work, it's pretty close.
It's a theme. Yeah, it's definitely a theme.
I mean, how many siblings really get along in, Harry Potter, etc.? I mean, the tension between siblings in the books is really remarkable.
It is. I think Rowling tends to look more kindly on large families, but even within large families, there's a lot of love, but by necessity, there's also a lot of conflict.
Yeah, I mean, even the Weasleys have Percy. Yeah. So I mean, it's just, yeah. Oh well. So we're saying that Jacqueline's theory about Cormoran and Charlotte having been that Cormoran having been a product of incest, or the Cormoran-Charlotte relationship being incestuous, is a live concern. Yeah. And Jacqueline's arguments, though, about the weak part of it is, why wouldn't Charlotte have eventually spilled this? I mean, she's saying that she was blackmailed by Jago or family or whomever to be silent about this. Maybe Tara threatened. I don't know who knew what Tara threatened her with, about the loss of the original child. But really, I just don't understand what Charlotte's, she's about to die in troubled blood, and she talks to Cormoran. She doesn't say, "Oh, by the way, before I die, here's something you have to know." Um, and her message is left on the answering machine. She couldn't, if this was the core secret of her life, she wouldn't
Yeah.
say that before she's about to kill herself. Um, what power would the blackmail have over her when she's dead? So I don't get it, because Charlotte likes a scene. Charlotte likes to explode people's ideas of themselves, and she's cruel. She
Yes.
wants to really hurt people. Now, I guess the counter to that would be, well, she knows it will destroy her ability to get back with Strike. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But again, if she's about to kill herself, why would she? She's not going to get back with Strike, in an afterworld she doesn't believe in. Am I wrong there, Nick? I mean, that seems to be the whole here, is why wouldn't Charlotte have dropped this bomb?
Yes, and that's really unanswerable without knowing more of that black backstory. So, if the reason why she is so broken, we know she's a troublemaker. She needs the drama. She's a compulsive liar. This is a character dysfunction. If the cause of that character dysfunction is the trauma she was subjected to in childhood, maybe it's just got to such a stage through manipulation that she has finally broken. Now that would be an argument for a genuine suicide.
What I really like about what Jacqueline Hayes has done here is that she's gone back and looked at scenes where we think we know exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
And she's decided that could be something else entirely.
Which is always a possibility with Rowling's writing.
That's exactly right. And while there may be, seeming impossibilities about this, or just unlikelihoods in terms of the character that Rowling has created in Charlotte, at least now, what Jacqueline is doing is looking at the Hallmark man, and then she's going back into the text of previous books and saying, okay, let's review these things in light of this incest argument, and let's see what, if the Cormoran Charlotte relationship could have been incestuous. What are the clues to that? And Tara, I think she's really got, she's focusing on Tara, and I don't believe that Tara is not coming back. Tara is too rich a character. Tara and Dino, I mean, I think they're coming back. And Robert Lawrence. I think that was I don't know who it was, Ed or who volunteered that. That's another RL in the series of RLs we have. We'll get to that. That's another comment we want to explore. That's really the value of what book 8 is. If you're really married to what's speculating about 9 and 10 and wanting to be the first ones to figure out what's going on there. You want to get your ectopic pregnancy, merit badge, that I get it. I mean, I've been there. I like those kind of things. That's really not the focus of what we do here, though. But the focus of what we do here is Rowling's artistry and meaning. And the artistry is largely predicated on narrative misdirection. And what Jacqueline is doing is taking that seriously and going back and seeing, if you read the entire series as a unit, and obviously, I think Jacqueline is committed to another theory of how the series is structured. I mean, we really have it. The 7-book series, the first 7 books are a unit. I mean, there's just too perfect a ring in terms of the series not to be that way. But that the next 3 books, we don't know what their relationship is with that 7-book series, other than that the first book we get out of the block is the cavalcade of great moments from the first 7 books. It's just it's like a variety show. And these characters rolling in and out from previous books that we haven't seen anything like it before. I think that's the show that we're going to see that in 9 and 10 as well. We're going to see these characters that we meet in this book uniquely, as if books 8, 9, and 10 are a unit. And this book, as you said, is a bridge between the 7 and this last trilogy of books. Anyway, that's our put this first is to say, Jacqueline, this is great. I love this. I see a real problem with it, but of course, if it were obvious, all of us would have seen it. And your process of going back into the book and looking for the narrative misdirection that could not have been seen except in light of what we picked up in Strike 8. That's you're on team Hogwarts Professor, Jacqueline, and we love you. All right, Ed Shardlow, he checked in on this almost right away.
Yeah.
Because that's Ed. And he has, as usual, he has great contribution. Good point about the paternity test being a test of Strike's paternity as well as Audley's. That also could prove significant with the Father Ted theory. It also fit thematically with Strike as the Hallmark man. And that's Ed's theory, right? I love that, is that really the 5 candidates for William Wright are really about Strike being Mr. Wright there, that he is the Hallmark man. A genetic test acting as a measure or worth and confirming provenance just as much as a hallmark. I love that. Strike is being tested in this book on his genetic background the way that a hallmark is a measure or worth and confirming provenance as a silver hallmark does.
Exactly.
Again, Ed,
so before a piece of silver has a hallmark applied to it, it is assayed. So it is judged and tested for its worth. In the UK, it has to be sterling silver. That's 97% pure silver. And then once it's been assayed, its worth is proved, then the hallmark is struck.
Wow. Okay. So Strike's being tested genetically is to find out, the provenance of his background. What is he? He's being assayed essentially in that genetic testing as much as we're trying to find out who Audley's parents is. This is really about Strike's parentage, what he is, because those things are out there now. Once we don't know even if the test was done. Really, we've got no confirmation of this
or what type of test it was. So Tam Spells comes back and says, thank you. I also just noticed that a 23andMe type DNA test.
That is not Tam Spells. That is Jacqueline.
Oh, Jacqueline. Sorry, Jacqueline. Yeah, Jacqueline came back and said, I also just noticed that a 23andMe type DNA test is exactly how Rupert uncovered the secret of his kinship with Decima. Coincidence that 2 commercial DNA tests are used in seemingly separate subplots of the same book? Perhaps not. Well, I mean, if you take a DNA test for a paternity test, that isn't a 23andMe type test. So the 23andMe type test is you have to sign releases that your DNA is going to be compared with a worldwide population. But of course, Strike doesn't submit his DNA sample to a laboratory for testing. Strike gives his cheek swab done out of sight in the bathroom to Bijou, and Bijou goes away. That's all we know.
Well, we know that she comes back and says, "You're in the clear."
Yeah.
But we have no testimony other than her, because she's such an extraordinary character. I mean, she comes off much more sympathetic in this book. She's a mother, and she's obviously in a difficult spot, of her own creation, but she's still in a difficult spot, and there's sympathy for that, right?
Yeah.
But what we learned about her in Running Grave and such is, this is a kind of a crazy woman, and and she's definitely going to be working towards her advantage and her and Audley's advantage.
Yeah.
Anyway, Tam spells. I mean, seriously, Ed's thing about highlighting all the genetic testing that's going on inside this book. The only one that really comes to the front of the surface story that we're reading is Strike's trip to the bathroom to do a swab.
Yeah.
We don't see, we don't see the Rupert and how he discovered this. We don't see Cosima's test that she talks about that may have been the ground of this. That Cosima and revealed to Rupert, which revealed Decima's relationship because Decima is related to Cosima. We don't know how all that played out exactly, but obviously it involved all sorts of DNA tests. And what's really funny about this is as Louise Freeman pointed out, one of the big flints of the series was the claim that in 1974 there was a DNA test done on Strike.
Yeah.
When that just wasn't a possibility.
Which would have won a Nobel Prize if that was true.
Strike would have been much more famous than he is. Or at least Lita would have been, right? I mean,
yeah. So I think they've that's been changed in later books to a paternity test. And paternity tests are still pretty precise, but they're much less precise. So you have something like a paternity test of that date. You have something like a 1 in 1,000 chance of giving you an erroneous result. So it's still pretty secure, but not as secure as the sort of 1 to many billions chance of an incorrect DNA.
Which leaves the door open to Rokeby not being Strike's father. I mean, I understand people really don't like that idea. Especially after Rokeby turns out to be such a wonderful guy in the Hallmark Man. But
we must remember the author with the chip of ice in her heart. Him turning out to be a nice guy actually makes him a little bit less likely to be Cormoran's father.
This is true. I mean, that's a weird golden thread to have all of a sudden the bad dad be a good dad. I mean, they talk about this about American men are famous for having, when they become grandfathers, they have a second act. They were bad dads all through the childhood of their children, and then they have grandchildren, and all of a sudden bad dad becomes the loving grandfather. His second act is, entire character flip. Anyway, I wonder if Rokeby's going to get that credit. All right, so we've talked about, Ed's theory in response to Jacqueline's theory, and Jacqueline's response. Tam spells, or Tam's Pels. We don't know yet. He or she writes, I also considered the Cormoran Charlotte possibility instead of Dino. A little possible piece of evidence is that Strike dreams he's running to save the baby. And Charlotte says, I don't want you to see it. You'd only touch it. Anyway, there's something wrong with it. A hint that all would not be well with this baby, unlike Lion. And we get Roy Phipps in Lethal White Lethal White. No, that's in Troubled Blood. His bleeding disease similar to hemophilia, which associates to the inbreeding with the royal families of Europe, etc. And we get Lethal White, which is a genetic disease, and Charlotte comparing herself to a broodmare. And the martyrdom self-sacrifice aspect of her wedding and her would Robin kill herself for you hints that, at least in Charlotte's mind, her death is a sacrifice of some kind. Whew.
Oof.
Okay, Jacqueline responded immediately. Love these thoughts. I think that dream from book 2 is some of the best evidence for the incest baby theories. It must be important, all caps there. Another potentially interesting part of the dream is that Strike wants to find and save the baby, but he's afraid of what he'll find if he goes looking for it. Admittedly, Jacqueline allows, an incest baby is pretty scary. Charlotte then says, you'll see eventually, it'll have to be announced in the papers. The significance of that statement is explained away in the text, and Strike figures the dream was his subconscious explaining how Anstice's wife knew about Charlotte's wedding date. But it also reads to me like a classic double meaning misdirection from Rowling. I think that dream is something like a prophecy. Now she asterisks that, and you have to scroll down to get, Also on the topic of prophetic dreams, Strike has an odd dream about Charlotte and Lethal White in which they've just purchased Chisel House together. At first, they're happy and in love, but as they walk through the shabby rooms with the peeling walls and the wires dangling from the ceiling, the mood of the dream shifts to something darker, and Strike wonders what they were thinking when they purchased the house. I'm struggling to understand the symbolic meaning of that dream, to be honest. Maybe it's as simple as Strike reflecting on how foolish it was to restart their relationship the last time, given all the destruction it had caused in the past. Now put that back. We're going back up to where she asterisked this. Okay, reading the asterisk piece, the footnote in text is a hangover from reading the book off the Pale Fire, which if you haven't read Pale Fire, you need to always read the
a tip for would-be Pale Fire readers, and I do recommend you do read it. Take a tip from me: don't purchase the Audible audiobook for Pale Fire. It will drive you crazy.
Seriously, if Nabokov had wanted to destroy, wanted to defend the Codex bit of reading, he no better book than Pale Fire could have been written for that. Anyway, back to Jacqueline's response. Remember in The Ink Black Heart, when Charlotte's really going off the deep end and leaves hysterical voicemails on the office phone? She tells Strike, I'm still protecting you to the effing press, even though I could tell them things that'd effing finish you. I could finish you if I told them, and why should I be effing loyal? What? And I think Strike hangs up. Again, there is a perfectly, maybe she ran out of her effing quota. Maybe you're only allowed 3 effings. Anyway, so that's good. And again, there is a perfectly valid explanation for her cryptic statements in the text. She's threatening to tell the press that Strike abused her. And we get some hints towards that, obviously, in Hallmark Man. But if you subscribe to the incest theory, is there going to be a Substack thing, Nick? We're going to have, incest theory at Cormoran Strike. That message could also very well show Charlotte getting closer to spilling the beans, closer to being a liability to the family, and potentially closer to being murdered to keep her silent. Assuming Murphy didn't kill her, of course, because I'm also intrigued by that theory. Yeah. Wow, Nick. I don't understand why Charlotte, when she has this relationship with a billionaire, and then that breaks off, that's something that hangs over this book, is the relationship with the hotelier or whatever, and knowing that
Landon Dormer, of which we know so much but oh so little.
Yeah, and we just find out in this book that hotelier billionaire has a fortune which is very similar to Charlotte's mother's family's fortune. Right?
Yeah.
Didn't she make her money in hotels and resorts and things?
Yeah, that's right.
She didn't make her money. She has her money from that family thing. So there's a connection that we didn't know before Hallmark Man.
No.
Why would Charlotte feel that she couldn't spill the beans as her life comes to a close? Did she write that in the suicide note, and that's why she was killed, and the suicide note was edited or just destroyed, or maybe it doesn't even really exist? We don't know.
That argues against it being a voluntary suicide. Right. Because you're right. If Charlotte says no, this is it. This is my parting shot. Well, why wouldn't she? And if there's one bit of confession that you're going to leave behind you in a suicide note, where I guess you're trying to justify why you're doing it to people that know you, If you're of that kind of character, that's the document that you settle your old scores. That's the document where you say, this is my dying testimony. This is what I am. This is what happened. Why wouldn't you? And that goes back to my argument of Valentine saying that Charlotte wrote that Strike said some awful things on the day she died. If that was in her suicide note, why would she write that?
To stick the bandolier into Strike.
But there's plenty of things that she could have done to put the knife into Strike if that's what she wanted to do. All you needed to do, Strike, was pick up the phone, and you couldn't even be bothered. Wouldn't that be better than, yes, you did pick up the phone and you were really, really mean to me, even though she knows that didn't happen, and Strike knew that didn't happen.
Yeah, this again. First of all, what I love is Jacqueline and Tam Spells, Jacqueline Hayes and Tam Spells, are going back and going into the dream material.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know anybody else who's done that.
No.
And yet, that's definitely where Rowling is definitely going to be playing games, because it's a narrative of the subconscious mind.
Yeah.
And it's going to be layered with different meanings that the person, certainly the reader, isn't going to have any clue as to what's really going on with that.
No.
And so it's a wonderful place to just drop wonderful clues.
That speaks to the truth of it, because it's written in this limited omniscient, and because the person whose dream it is doesn't even understand it. There's no reason for them to misinterpret it. It's got to be the truth, and it's got to be there for a reason.
Yeah, it's like Rowling quotes a psychologist, I think, who talks about nobody lies except that the truth is more painful than the lie has to obscure something.
Yeah.
And here the dream and the interpretation that's given in the text is very much like, again, you mentioned the third person omniscient, is that you're shown all the facts.
Yeah.
But it's through the filter of what you're given what the person thinks about it, and they usually dismiss the essential piece, so that you're thrown off that while having been given the clue right there in the plot line. Now this is Rowling. I mean, she's really at the top of her game. Obviously these books are never going to achieve the popularity of the Harry Potter books, but Rowling is writing it at such a more sophisticated level than she was when she started. I mean, she's been doing this now for 25 years, and this book clearly, I think, is the capstone project of her life. I mean, God willing, she'll write another series after this one. She already told she have other projects in the works, but I think this is going to be the one that the Royal Society of Rowling readers will be obsessed with much more than Harry Potter. It's like Nabokov. People talk about Lolita, and that's as Nabokov's work. I think you have to really know about that. But Nabokov people all talk about Pale Fire. That's Nabokov at his best. And you'll see Lolita on greatest novels of all time lists, but the better lists have Pale Fire above Lolita. Anyway. That's like arguing, which is better, Hamlet or King Lear or something. But they're both obviously some of the greatest novels ever written. But Pale Fire, wow! All right, I don't know how much more to say about this theory other than openness. Obviously, we're highlighting this and elevating this to say, the method. What Jacqueline and Tam Spells and Ed and others are doing is they're using Hallmark Man and the events in it that are mysterious and curious and echoes of the previous books to go back into the previous books and see, threads that they're echoes, they're pointers, there are mysterious things that happen in those books that we thought we understood because what was told about us inside that novel, but have a different appearance and meaning perhaps in light of what we experience and learn in Hallmark Man. Great stuff. And, it's all about genetics. It's all about, that the Hallmark Man. I love that piece that Ed's there about that genetic testing is a little bit like hallmarking in terms of the quality of the material having to be assayed, as you said, Nick. Boy, a lot of people really don't like this book, Nick.
No, that is true. And it's a tough read. The first time through, it's a tough read.
First time? I think it only grows in value, to use Ron's thing. The value you get out of this book is how much you read it in the context of the series. Now, obviously, we haven't got it in full context. We haven't got 9 and 10. But doing what Jacqueline and Tam Spells and Ed and others are doing here, and going back and looking at the first 7 books, using it as a lens or a prism, whatever, to look through and see how the light shining through it gives us different colors, whatever, of the previous books. That's an artistry and meaning point.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about that. And of course, obviously, those people who are consumed with 9 and 10 and figuring that out, I played that game. I got my Order of Merlin first class on speculative theory, whatever.
Few played it as well, John.
Yeah, well, and I've got some spectacular misses, but I just don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to. I mean, we are gonna do it, but I don't want to make it the focus of what we're doing. All right, we're on to another great comment. This is from a new commenter, Cheryl Rose Aurochs. How would you pronounce that last name, Nick?
Aurochs.
Aurochs.
Yes.
Okay. Is that a common name in the UK? I've never seen that name before.
Very much not a common name. I seem to remember a character in P.G. Woodhouse's Blandings Castle with the surname Aurochs. I may be making that up, but it seems to it's I've heard it somewhere, but no, not usual.
Okay. Anyway, Cheryl Rose, please forgive us if you took that. We're not trying to diminish your name. We just never seen it before. All right. Hello, lady and gentlemen. Lady here is yeah. Maybe Dr. Feemy's presence makes this the right place to put this exploratory research. When Rowling first introduces the murder to one of the detectives, there is a reference to a religious or mythological deity. Is this just confirmation bias in that Rowling litters her prose with deities, and I only notice that it happens during certain scenes? I need readers' help. All right, so I don't know if this was the right place to do this, Cheryl Rose, but it's a place. And, as we read all of them, we're going to take this out of the Dr. Feemy thread and raise this up for other people to look at. Anyway, she starts off, Cheryl Rose, with full disclosure. This idea is not original with me. I don't know where or when, deep in the comments in the faculty lounge or one of the other fan sites, someone, all caps, mentioned that in Ink Black Heart, the duo could hear Freddie Mercury singing a Queen song during the first scene where they met the Upcott family. Well, that may be a reference to Evan Willis, who did the most important work with Freddie Mercury in Ink Black Heart as the hermetic figure inside the story. And that he appears, or you can hear Freddie Mercury, all caps, during the first scene where they met the Upcott family, which means this is the place where you look for this problem. Anyway, it could be, she mentions faculty lounge. I have written to Louise Freeman saying, please let me know the origin of this, if this is from your site, and Louise has not responded. The comment was that there tended to be a planet mention near the introduction of murderers. I have kept this idea in mind during rereads, and here is what I have noticed. And really, Cheryl Rose, I love this. Someone going back and taking what happens in one book and saying, okay, is there something similar to that in other books? And here's we don't have to do it because Cheryl Rose has done it. What I've noticed is it's not a planet, but a deity. Cuckoo's Calling, during the initial interview, Bristow says Lulu Lula Landry worked for the Athena modeling agency. Ta-da! Okay. In Silkworm, when Liz's horrible old Doberman, poor thing, leaves the office during that first interview, JKR, Rowling says, his head is like that of Anubis, an Egyptian god. Now, Evan Willis talks about that at length, because that's another reference to the Hermes. But
Yeah.
Career of Evil, Strike is looking at a picture of a person who turns out to be Lang and mentally compares him to Atlas, all caps. I mean, this is looking pretty good so far, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's 3 hits, right? Lethal White, the scene introducing Raph and Kinvara. I believe this is our first meeting with both. She asked, check my work, folks. Mentions a medication called lachesis. And then forgive my pronunciation on that. One of the fates. Not quite a goddess, but we're definitely mythological gold there. Trouble Blood is full of astrological and mythological references, and I haven't found one close to the introduction of the murderer. That would be, Janus, basically.
Janus, yeah.
It could be Janus. It could be Dennis Creed, but we'd have to look at that. She says, this novel may be an exception. I love a theorist that is welcome to admitting exceptions. All right, but you're right. There are, really, Troubled Blood is, as she says, is full of astrological and mythological references. I think of the paintings that Robin sees in the art gallery, drawn by one of the suspects, and I think of the statue in the library of forgetting his name. His name is Roy Phipps.
Yeah.
His father has. We'll have to go back to that. Obviously, that's not Janus.
No.
That's not Dennis Creed. But yeah, it's loaded with these things. Cheryl Rose says this novel, Troubled Blood, may be an exception. Ink Black Heart, Mercury. We just covered that already.
Yeah.
The Running Grave. When Robin sees Papa J at the rally, or whatever that meeting was. Yeah, it's a religious service that's more of a rally. I'm right with you, Cheryl Rose. Not liturgical. All right. The slideshow includes Shiva and others. Later, the girl who opts out has a Buddha tattoo, which I find interesting. She says, Cheryl Rose, I have to disagree with you here. She says Buddhism is a philosophy, not a religion, and Buddha is not a deity. Wow. Okay. Comparative religion people will really, Renee Guénon was right with you on this, but Renee Guénon eventually was won over to accepting at least Buddhism as a revealed tradition, not a philosophy. But all right. Interesting reversal of that trend. It is a trend that someone who escaped the crime is under the auspices of a non-religious figure. Anyway, but the Shiva thing, I guess you're saying that Papa J is the murderer. And that would be curious because Papa J is not the murderer in The Running Grave. He's
responsible for many deaths.
That's
but
right.
That's not quite the same thing as saying he's a or the murderer.
That's right. So I'm not sure if Running Grave really fits, but I love the fact that she picked that. I wouldn't have remembered Shiva in the slideshow. That's a great catch. Then in The Hallmark Man, there is that poster of Jesus smoking a joint in Griff's living room. As a Christian, I'm sorry to see my sui generis guy treated as just one more symbol. However, this victim's death is particularly self-sacrificial, so maybe it's okay. Please help me support or debunk this idea, which I reiterate is not original to me, but I don't know who to credit. Thank you for your exciting content and honored guests and for providing this discussion space. Okay. Cheryl, this is great stuff.
Wow. Thank you, Cheryl.
Basically, you're taking the mythological conversation that we had with Dr. Feeney, and you're saying, well, okay, let's look at this theory and see how often we get mythological gods or just any kind of god mentioned at the time of the murderer's thing, so that it's sort of a marker that she's hoping that your noetic faculty will say, look here, look closer here. It's not what the surface shows. I'm with you and being uncomfortable. Certainly the whole poster of Jesus smoking a joint in Griff's living room. Yeah, that had me doing there's something not right here. And it should have been a clue. Oh, this guy, there's something really off about this guy, especially when we hear the noise from the floor.
Yeah.
And that should have been a clue, right? But again, Cheryl Rose, she makes the parallel between, Griff's living room, where this iconography of Christ is blasphemous, with the activity in the basement, the unconscious, the subjection of women and torturing and sexual abuse of women, with the vault where the hallmarked man has the sign of the cross cut into his body, and he was trying to save that exact same woman. And that was a sacrificial death, a really selfless death on Tyler Powell's part. Excellent. I mean, I'm loving that. That makes me feel pretty good about the blasphemous iconography in Griff's living room, was that this is the anti-Christian position. And again, Cheryl, this was great. You did the full survey. You asked other people to fill in your blanks because you didn't quite get them all. And you noted the places where there were holes. I love it. But that catch of Athena and Anubis and Atlas and Lachesis, along with Mercury, that was, I mean, those are spot on. That's a real trend. So I'm gonna, Nick, I don't have answers. I have to do a full reread and do what Cheryl Rose has done and see if I catch something that she missed.
John, we have listeners and watchers from around the world and in almost every state of the Union. Guys, can you fill in the blanks?
Yeah. Yeah, and I will put down below a link to Evan Willis's discussion of the Anubis and of Freddie Mercury in Ink Black Heart.
Yeah.
Because that's something Cheryl Rose, you're really going to be interested in terms of how this works. All right, and we got that's all I have to say is thumbs up, Cheryl Rose. You're really reading for artistry and meaning. That's a great thing. And when we read Strike 9 and we see any kind of god or goddess appear, we'll be saying this is it. This is the murderer. The numbers are at least 50% that this is the family where the murderer is hiding. I love it. Cheryl Rose wrote another comment. Can you let me know the title and author of the book about Gothic elements? Well, this was kind of embarrassing. I wrote a book which I recently gave to our friend from Argentina, who, of course, came to the United States last week and made one of his first stops, Oklahoma. Not for me, of course, but for the Dylan Archive, which is a whole other story I hope we can tell here someday. But I gave him my copy of my hardcover copy of Harry Meets Hamlet and Scrooge. Now, Harry Meets Hamlet and Scrooge was my book about Harry Potter and English literature. And it's the full version of what was cut apart to become Harry Potter's bookshelf. Nick, have you got a copy of this?
I have a copy.
It's like what, 1.5 times as large as
yeah. My copy is just the bookshelf version.
You have the bookshelf version. All right.
Yeah.
The Harry Meets Hamlet and Scrooge. I'll put a link to it down below if you want to get a copy of that. That is, I think it's twice as long as bookshelf.
Wow.
The Penguin didn't want all of that stuff. Well, I think it's the third or fourth chapter in the book is about the Gothic. And it's one of I was just reading it this morning. I thought, wow, I'm learning stuff. I've forgotten all this stuff. This is really good. And in it, I thought, well, I know it's going to be in here, the book that that I referenced in that article. And guess what? I can't find it on my shelf. The book is called Patterns of Fear in the Gothic Novel, 1790 to 1830. I think it's actually, it was this woman's dissertation, which is by Tracy Ann Blaisdell, or Ann Blaisdell Tracy. There's a comma in there, Ann Blaisdell Tracy. Now, again, I'll send you, references to that. because I'm looking for that list of all of the qualities inside the Gothic novel, of which Rowling has almost all of them. And I couldn't find that list, and I couldn't find where I discussed that in my books, but I'm still looking. Don't give up, Cheryl Rose. But the two books that I have, and this is the one I really like, is the Handbook of Gothic Literature. And it's edited by Marie Mulvey Roberts. And I'll include a link to this down below. And Gothic Fiction, edited by Gerald Hogel, the Cambridge Companion to Gothic Literature. Those are the books with Patterns of Fear in the Gothic novel that I used in Harry Meets Hamlet and Scrooge. Now, I did, yeah, I'd have to go back and find it inside the book. Doggone it, Nick. Where I did list in that chapter, the most extraordinary Gothic elements that are in this. If you get a copy of Harry Meets Hamlet and Scrooge, the fourth chapter is Gothic Romance, the spooky atmosphere formula from Transylvania, Harry Potter as an echo of Frankenstein, Dracula, the Bronte sisters, and Jekyll and Hyde. Now, well into that chapter, I don't list all the 45 things that I got out of fear in Gothic, English Gothic literature. But I do list something about, this is from Ann Taylor's book, and that is the qualities of the pure Gothic romance novel from the late 18th century through the 10,000 Harlequin paperbacks. And here, this is why Travis Brinsley and I independently identified Harry Potter as a Gothic heroine. Just listen to this and think about Harry Potter, and you'll see this. A young female is stripped of her human support, her mother usually dead before the novel begins, her father or other guardian dying in the early chapters. The lover, if any, who might protect her, is sent away or prevented from seeing her. Sirius Black, whatever. Depending upon the period of the novel, she may be kidnapped or fall into the hands of an unscrupulous guardian, or go out as a governess, or marry hastily. Out in the world, her troubles multiply. People want to kill her, rape her, lock her up in a convent for life, and make off with her small fortune. Her task is to defend her virtue and liberty, to resist evil, and especially to penetrate disguises, spot the plausible seeming villains, trust the suspicious-looking heroes, and thereby rebuild a support system that will restore her to a quiet life. With pluck and luck, she manages these near impossibilities and is rewarded with the discovery of lost relatives and or the promise of reliable domestic love and a household of her own. Now Jane Eyre is that start to finish, and Northanger Abbey kind of satirizes this thing without all the supernatural elements. The Gothic, the bumper sticker version of what Gothic is about is it's fear in the atmosphere, and that it's fear. It's all the sublime and scary things. This is what Rowling is playing on. Just like, there was a satire, a parody of the Gothic before Northanger Abbey called Nightmare Abbey that did almost the same thing. Austen just did it much better. That Rowling seems to be doing too, not only with Harry Potter, but with every one of her characters. Could Cormoran Strike be another Gothic heroine? Stripped of her human support, her mother dead before the novel begins, her father or other guardian dying in the early chapters, or just being separate, and Strike on his own. Anyway, that's the book, is that, and I'll put that down in the comments. Sorry if that was much more than anybody wanted to know about this. I mentioned.
I can promise you, John, that was not enough. I think people people could listen to the Gothic parallels of Harry Potter, and you just teased us at the end there with Gothic parallels to Cormoran Strike. I think there's work to do there.
Especially with the opening of Hallmark Man.
Yeah.
In which if you had the checklist of Gothic elements, she was working her way through the list hard there. That those first two chapters, strike on the road, separated from his partner, feeling
driving
angsty.
Rain, dark, yeah.
And his father, who he's always, his father figure he's always loved, has just died. Rowling compost pile of books has a lot of Gothic in it, and it's great stuff. All right, another thing I mentioned in that interview, that conversation with Dimitra Fimi, was the author who murdered her mother as a child,
Yes.
a young woman, and it's Anne. The author's name is Anne Perry. I didn't want to give the wrong name there. There's a wonderful book called Anne Perry and the Crime of the Century, in which the reporter who tracked down the two girls that had killed the mother reveals this and discusses. It's not quite a critical biography, but it discusses how Anne Perry's novels are largely informed with a very deep lake, Nick. It's a very deep lake she's got. Not only did she commit did she murder somebody or participate in the murder, but she spent time in jail, prison, and then had her entire life, redirected and renamed this and that. All right. More on that. Oh, and I think it was Ed. No, who asked Nick for the mythology text?
Oh, J.S. Melkson.
Oh, good. Oh, here it is. I got it right in front of me.
Yeah.
J.S. Melkson. And again, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing that, and we don't know if you're male or female. But anyway, here we go. J.S. wrote, I too enjoyed the Dimitra Fimi conversation immensely. Can someone recommend a version of Cupid and Psyche and other relevant works of mythology for a striker who assiduously avoided mythology through 7 years of post-secondary education? I'm willing to gut it out in order to understand Rowling's work. Thanks in advance.
We honor your sacrifice, JS, for the greater good.
And I want you to know, JS, you're not going to. This is not going to be something you're going to feel you're toughing out. It's really great stuff. Now there are. I immediately sent this to Dr. Fimi and said, "What do you consider to be the relevant works that people should be reading?" And she has not gotten back to me yet. The woman has a life other than Cormoran Strike and Hogwarts Professor. What's up with that? Anyway, you really do need to go to her Substack, which I'll link down below again, and read the stuff that she's written there. I mean, if you enjoyed her conversation, you get the crystallized version of that, and everything she writes. So good. Anyway, the first book that people recommend in this thing is Edith Hamilton's Mythology. I'll put a link down below to that. There's The Greek Myths by Robert Graves, which, as you can see, is a little bit longer than the Hamilton work. Okay, and it has a fun cover here with cartoons and things. But seriously, a wonderful introduction to Greek mythology, and it's not only an introduction, but it gives you an idea of the complexity and interrelation of these stories and their variety.
If there's anyone who's enjoyed I, Claudius, either the book or the wonderful BBC dramatization, that's the same author.
Yeah, that's right. I just saw a film with Derek Jacobi in it the other day. I was thinking, it's Claudius. All right. It was Cinderella, incidentally. People that want to know what that movie was, it was wonderful. He played the king. All right. Classical Myth by Barry Powell has been very helpful to me as well. Yes, I'll put a link to that down below. This one's got illustrations and variations on themes. And finally, Gustav Schwab's Myths and Epics of Ancient Greece, called Gods and Heroes. Another standard work, has lots and lots and lots of the mythology. You get used to using the index in these works and surfing through it. I've never known anyone who's read these books straight through. But JS, perhaps you'll be the first. I know that I'm going to be looking up Artemis tonight because we got a note this morning, didn't we, Nick? From
Oh, yes.
a reader saying that in one Artemis legendarium, Artemis kills the handsome hunter, Orion, who becomes a constellation, as
Yeah.
Demetrius says, and there we go again. Off they go into the stars. All right, now that um, um, I guess it's just you're supposed to say Orion, but I for me it's the Okinawan beer, Nick. I can't say Orion. Anyway, that's a great catch.
Yeah.
And because how did I miss that when I did all my review of Artemis? That I missed that she kills the hunter. But the person, and forgive me, Nick, maybe I'll put that down below. That person's fine, so I give them proper credit for this because it's a great find. The hunter, if Robin as Artemis is going to kill a hunter, that's going to be Jago Ross, right? Because Jago's name is really resonant of the German, and he's kind of a Nordic figure, right?
Yeah.
Jaeger is the German word for hunter, one of the few words I remember from my years of German, and that would make sense in a way. I can see Robin killing Jago Ross.
Yes.
Can't you, Nick? I mean, and
Well,
I can see all of us doing the whoa.
That would be very popular. Now, I think it's been most common in the fandom to look at Jago as being a Cornish Christian name. So Jago is quite common in Cornwall as the Cornish version of James, or in Spanish it would be Iago. But of course, he's not Cornish, so the family doesn't come from Cornwall.
He is not a Western man, Nick. He is
No,
not a Western man.
no. Croy Castle, or the Castle of Croy, even though it doesn't exist, is clearly in the north of the country rather than down south. So I guess it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, still, it's a great link, and it's exactly what we're trying to do here with the mythology, is to see how Rowling's embedded this and how she's changing things. What if Jago winds up killing her? Wouldn't that be Artemis takes it? All right, I've got I've got a couple of things, people writing about the ring idea, but before, and I'm not sure we can go into that because it's hard to see without the chart up here. I've got Sandy Hope and Anne. Make sure I pronounce Anne Phelps. I want to make sure I make sure I'm right. They've shared with me their charts, and that's going to be hard if you haven't watched. If you're not a paid subscriber and you haven't watched the thing, that's going to be a hard thing for you to follow. So I think I'm going to feature those, Nick, when we do our part 2 thing. I'll drop some of those and have some feedback to our show in that. So next, I want to talk about another Ed Shardlow observation, which he calls fleeting observations. I reckon, John, that your sense of being on your own arguing a case for Robin being sterile is self-fulfilling. Thanks, Ed. I think you assumed no one would go with you on it, and you framed your view of the responses you got. As shown by the way you posted the theory, Robin Ellicott is sterile, changed my mind. All right, Ed.
Okay.
So, but I mean, seriously, I put it up that way, begging people to engage with the idea. No one engaged with that idea. Go ahead and go back and look at that post. Maybe Ed posted and said, "I'm interested in this." Yeah, Ed, you did post one, and that's what you're talking about. Because I went back and forth with you, like, "Oh, come on, guys, give me something, give me some pushback here, or give me some encouragement here." Anyway, that was a good exchange between 2 or 3 serious strikers and myself on the theory, but really the fandom did not warm to that idea at all. All right, an interesting aspect, Ed goes on after poking me, thank you, Ed. An interesting aspect of the Lake and Shed perspective is how Rowling also applies it to her characters. Now, this is a first for me, Nick. This is great. Her primary protagonists and antagonists all have complex backstories that reveal their motivations and intentions. Some of this comes from their lakes, and they are not conscious of it. Some of it is the product of their conscious minds thinking long and hard in their mental sheds. Wow, that's great. Because we've been talking about interior narratives inside the story, and especially about how in a mystery, the bad guy is trying to create a counter narrative to the truth that people will buy into. Ed is saying, think of those bad guys as authors. Rowling, she has her method, which is, her unconscious mind gives her the inspiration. That's the potential alibi of the bad guy. He wants to murder somebody, but he has to come up with an alibi. We get the lake inspiration, probably just for the murder. And then the shed mechanisms of the alibi come up from their intentional artistry. Loving that, Ed. But Ed, guess what? I'm bouncing that right back to you and say, give me a for instance.
Yeah.
In fact, do what Cheryl Rose did and go back through every book and give me the for instance of it. Because I think you're going to find something really fascinating about that is Donnie Lang, he's not going to talk about his mom and his dad. He hated the psychologist who wanted to talk about his mom and his dad. But there it is.
But if you're a creative person, as Rowling is, who has thought deeply about her own creative process, and she has to write a character who comes up with this idea, this plan, this structure, of course they're going to be thinking the same way that the creator of them is thinking, because that's the way she works. I find that really compelling idea.
Once again, Ed, hat off. But like Cheryl Rose and Jacqueline Hayes, implicit in Ed's comment is, prove me wrong, change my mind. Sorry, Ed, had to put that in there. But also, please fill in, let's look at the books in this light. How much are the bad guys in Rowling's work very much like Rowling in their process, their lake inspiration and their shed artistry to create the big twist at the finish. Of course, they hope their story is never figured out. Hey, that was great. And you've got one more, Nick. I've got one more too. Vicky wrote.
Yeah.
And Vicky, thank you for this, Vicky. Absolute gold. This is the Dimitra Femi conversation. I'm blown away by the richness of this discussion. Honestly, one of the best things I've ever listened to. Thank you so much, Dr. Dimitra Femi, for blessing us with your deep knowledge, insight, and experiences. And here's the part that's gold. I loved when you quoted Ursula Le Guin, fantasy is true. It isn't factual, but it's true. And followed up with, there is a truth that goes beyond the factual. That's very much of the iconographical stuff that we were talking about. Very profound, and reminds me again that the stories Rowling writes are filled with truths that transcends the material, that which is bound by space and time. And so we as readers must always seek to go to deeper or maybe higher planes. Thanks, Nick and John, for facilitating this wonderful conversation. The three of you work so well together. Every Strike Rowling fan should watch this. Ah, Vicky, from your mouth to fandom's ears. All right. She also says, also my quote of the week, John, we invite lawsuits. Nick, John, we have spoken about this. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, we do invite lawsuits. Whatever. But not.
And we really have spoken about this.
That's all right. We're going to just back off from that. But hey, Nick, incest, abortion, all right. I wanted to add to Vicky's highlighting that Ursula Le Guin thing was I couldn't remember there's a token scholar at Baylor University. His name is Ralph Wood. And I met him. I gave a talk at Baylor's Honors College back in the day. And I think he said to me personally, and I also read it later in something that he wrote, that that fantasy fiction is not escape from reality, but escape into reality. And you can pull that apart for about a week. But it was a response to people saying, I don't like fiction. I don't need, to read about lies and dishonesty and that, which is a real school of thought inside certain Christian communities. That Wood, who was teaching in a Baptist college and was a Baptist himself, would be familiar with. And his defense was fantasy fiction is not escape from reality, but escape into reality. And that's certainly what we get at the King's Cross moment that Dr. Femi said was the key scene for her, Dumbledore and Harry at King's Cross. When they talk about what's real. And Harry has clearly gone, this is his post. He's sacrificed himself in love for his friends and community and found himself in the other world, Logos land, and then is offered the opportunity to go back and to redeem the world. I mean, quite the scene. That's escape into reality, much as Jack Jones's trip into the land of the lost is that same kind of escape into what's most real. Anyway, again, Vicki, thank you for the wonderful comment. Nick, you said you've got one more for us.
I have. So this is from our YouTube channel. And although John and I spend all our time on the Substack, we are grateful to our YouTube subscribers. Please, as they say on YouTube all the time, please like, comment, and subscribe. And this is a comment from our first time commenter on Substack, Cheryl Rose Oryx. So she posted on our YouTube channel 9 days ago. So this is, hi guys, thank you again for a fascinating discussion. Here are my notes in no particular order, and they are all great notes. So Betty is a black Labrador. Yes, Cheryl, thank you. Yeah. John asked me and I said, no, I don't think we do know what breed of dog. Of course we do. It is a black Labrador. First mentioned when Linda texts Robin a photo with an eye roll emoji as if to imply, oh, your father is so impulsive. Linda says the puppy's name is Betty, but we don't meet the puppy herself until Christmas. I love her. We love her too, Cheryl. We are both dog lovers. 2. Things and people that, like the pigeons, never left their original location. This includes Jolanda Chloe, who was not interrailing with a boyfriend, but had been under the basement the whole time. 3. I have to admit, I don't like your characterization of Bizet's Carmen as a woman who tortures her men. Thank you very much. I honestly didn't know enough about the opera to challenge John, but you've done an excellent job of it. I concede that culturally, in some quarters, she is understood this way. Really, she is unconventional in that once she is not in love, she doesn't see a sexual or romantic history as a reason to pretend otherwise. She exploited Don Jose, but she warned him in song to garde toi before he got involved with her. That Don Jose fell in love with her and then expected her to feel grateful that he would be willing to legitimize the relationship, even though it compromised him, is Don Jose's responsibility and problem and not Carmen's. She made no promises. That Carmen is willing to literally die for this degree of honesty and integrity, where lesser women would cave and make the best of romantic pressures by marrying, is something I admire about Carmen. Not coincidentally, this is something we all get increasingly annoyed throughout the Hallmark Man that Robin does not do. She is vacillating under Ryan's emotional manipulation and keeps trying to tell herself she's in love because she is loyal. Carmen, on the other hand, is ruthlessly honest. She is loyal to the bullfighter she really loves. What does all this mean to the Hallmark Man character, Carmen? Well, it's a little early to say, and Cheryl admits she doesn't know. I don't believe Rowling's character is meant to have a man torturer as a reference. Note number 4. Robin's.
Can I break in there?
Of course.
We're gonna get swarmed by these magnificent
things.
First of all, Cheryl Rose, thank you for that rebuke, because the highlight there that what we talked about also in that adventure was about Kim Cochran and Strike. Or maybe this was in the ring thing. Kim Cochran is in chapter 7 is like the pivot scene, and she meets with Robin, and this is everything that Robin isn't. Is a woman that just exudes sexuality and manipulation, and she lives. She's the Eros figure, all right, and it's this woman that Robin isn't, and yet it's in a way, if she would simply be a woman that would suggest to Strike, I'm interested in these things, I love you, a lot of these things wouldn't happen. So you have Kim Cochran almost as we have the Artemis Anteros Robin, and we have the Eros Cupid, hypersexual Kim Cochran. And I'll talk about her names, obviously, in the name thing. But then this is wonderful what you just did, Cheryl Rose. We go to Christmas time, and who's the most interesting woman that she meets in Masham at Christmas time? Far and away, it's Carmen Ellicott, or whatever her last name, if she took Ellicott as her last name. And there she meets a woman who is brutally honest. She has her tattoos, this and that. There's nothing posed about it. And her relationship with Martin may be very much like the Carmen relationship as you described with Don Jose. I mean, it's just magnificent there, Cheryl. And me and my boobish chauvinism, I totally missed it. But I think you're spot on. And Robin meets her in the bar where she essentially solves the case. I mean, she does the search for RL, which I'm going to come back to in a second. And that's where, again, that's so good that she meets Carmen, the honest woman, and she meets Kim Cochran, this Eros unhinged woman, who's a good detective, right? It's supposed to be her shadow self. Great work, Cheryl Rose. Nick, make sure you send me this link so I can credit Cheryl when I talk about this later. This is great.
I will. So point 4, regarding Robin's possible disappearance in book 9, is Wade King still at large? I need another reread because I know he was released on bail and Robin had to stay vigilant for him. Did he get recaptured? Maybe he grabs Robin. Also, I don't think, even though it's a fascinating idea, that RFM is the Gorilla Man. If we assume that the attacker is different from Wade King, there's a height difference, and I'm convinced Green Jacket mechanic outside Arta de Pasta was Gorilla Man, and therefore not RFM. Because Robin was on the phone with RFM when she noticed Green Jacket Man was staring at her. And I think she would have noticed if Green Jacket Man was also on the phone at the same time. But if Gorilla Man is not Wade King, that's another prospective nabber off the streeter. Now, we don't know. I had a quick check through my electronic text this afternoon. We don't know if Wade King was recaptured or not. So that's got to be a plausible that Wade King is still at large.
I mean, I think Ed's original theory was that the person in the department store, and the person who throws the knife down on the street, that those men could be RFM.
Yeah.
But never saying that Wade King was that way, or even necessarily the man in green jacket. But yeah, Cheryl Rose, you're on the right track. We're just trying to figure out those things, and what a fascinating possibility that that we're going to see a real bleed between 8, 9, and 10, and that the person who was arrested and then released on bail goes out and grabs Robin again. Whew. But why would the phone call then be a ransom thing, or what would that be? What would that phone call be? It comes so quickly. It couldn't be. Murphy
Yes.
wouldn't call the office within 5 minutes
No.
of that disappearance. So.
No. So I think that's a long note. So there's another 5 points that I think we might save for another show. Do you have anything you'd like to wrap up with, John?
Well, I just mentioned the RL theory, which is something that Ed Shardlow came up with, and we keep finding more RLs. Anyway, Ed wrote way back in the day, the similarity of the names Rena Liddell and Rita Lindvall is intriguing, and I'm wondering if they're both reflections of Robin L. Acott, right? Rena Liddell, RL, Rita Lindvall, RL, Robin L. Acott, RL. This would be in keeping with the idea that, excuse me, that all the candidates for the body and the vault are aspects of Strike. Perhaps there are corresponding characters who likewise echo Robin. Is there another counterpart in the DeLeon story? Maybe Richard DeLeon, another RL. Tam Spells wrote back and said, look at this. Interesting parallel with the RLs. Robin talks about some part of her still being stuck under those stairs at time during the series. So some part of her is still dead and buried like Rita Lindvall. But Strike is going to bring her up from the river like Rena Liddell. Tam Spells, add another RL is Ronna Lang of Career of Evil, who is infertile due to Lang's abuse, and then marries a police officer who makes her feel safe in her flat after Lang tracks her down. Another Robin parallel, perhaps. Tam Spells again adds another one. Rupert is really the son of a Lancaster and a Lagarde, not a Fleetwood. So he should also be an RL. And then J.S. Malikson gives us Ralph Lawrence is an RL, but it's likely a cover name. It seems like we were given too much information about him for him not to appear in a future book. Agreed on that, J.S. So lots of RLs, and I think what Ed and Tam Spells and JS are hunting here is just as Strike has his aspects of soul and character in the presumed the possibilities for the dead body inside the Silver Vault. So we have all these RLs, especially, Rena Liddell and Rita Lindvall as being aspects of Robin Ellicott. Very subtle, but all name driven. Yeah. Love this. All right. Especially with the Ronna Lang catch that Tam Spells makes. That's just brilliant because Ronna Lang, is effectively sterilized by rape from someone she was married to, but still, and she winds up sterile, but being happily married to a police officer who makes her feel safe. Okay, again, great catches. Yeah. So that's yeah. There are more, Nick. There's even more. Yeah. But that I couldn't go without dropping that bomb on the fandom as well. And again, I'm gonna put all the links to these things we've talked about down below, so people can read these in the original and comment on them if they want on those threads, or they can simply comment on each one of these ideas that Strike fandom, and seriously, these are serious strikers, Nick. The work that they're doing is so much more interesting than just, looking for the romance angle or just worrying about where the books are going. But looking at Rowling's artistry, in Hallmark Man and how it serves as a point of reflection on all the things we thought we knew in the first 7 books that might point to these last 3 books being one book, a bridge to the series, the last 3 books being its own unit to draw it all together, sort of like an epicycle on an orbit of the first 7 books. We have to do circles, right, Nick? It has to be a circle.
Has to be. Has to be a circle. Okay, so we have a part two ring composition, which I am woefully behind on, but we need to try and get, or I need to try and get finished this week. Upcoming projects I have, there is a project that is in hand, which is weather dependent. So will be scheduled as soon as we get, or I get some good weather to complete it. In the meantime, I have a wet weather project that I'd like to kick off as well, which is Aurora Lee and its application to JKR's oeuvre.
Wow. Nick, are you reading Aurora Lee?
I really am, and it's astonishing.
Wow. I'm staring at it on my bookshelf here. It's a book that's haunted me for what? How long has it been?
John, it's a perfect ring.
Okay. Woo! Okay, because one more book to ring. I could do it. Gosh, Nick, I'm working on the names. I mean, I've been talking about that now for a while. I mean, I went back and I read my Lethal White names post. And I'm not sure I'm going to be able to equal that post. That was, and Hallmark Man has so many more names in it than Lethal White did. I mean, what's funny is I talk about Patricia Fleetwood, Chisel's first wife, in the names and describe what Fleetwood was. I thought, well, at least I got a head start. You know, I got that's in the original. In addition to doing the names post, and I'm doing part two of the ring analysis as well for our paid subscribers. I'm working on a repackaging of that 2017 Wizard Reading Formula class that I did for the new year. And that'll really be mostly of interest, clearly, to Harry Potter fans. I'm going to repackage that, and the paid subscribers will get, more than 50% off that offering. So we've got a lot going, Nick. And in addition to my house, the wiring in my house and giving away here, but there's a lot going on. And Thanksgiving, I know you guys don't do Thanksgiving in the UK, right? We're just ungrateful, pagan socialists,
John, we're thankful every day of the year. we don't have to save it up for one day.
That's right. That's right. There's a Russian saint that Saint Seraphim of Sarov, who always greeted guests to the monastery and the skeet where he lived by greeting them with Christ is risen, which is the Paschal greeting, because every day was Pascha to Saint Seraphim. All right, so I love that, Nick. Every day is Thanksgiving in the UK. All right, it's just I'm sorry, the full head roll on that one. But anyway, God willing, if the weather doesn't turn really cold here, it's supposed to get pretty cold here, I'll be driving out to Santa Fe to see the grandkiddies and all that good stuff.
Lovely. Oh.
But anyway, it shouldn't involve any break in the action here, Nick. Don't worry. We'll be doing Thanksgiving Day on Thursday. I'll be recording with Nick for a couple of hours. Anyway, again, all of this back to the beginning. The Hogwarts Professor Substack is in more countries and in more states than Hogwarts Professor has ever been in. And the conversations haven't been this rich since the publication of Deathly Hallows. And I'm just thrilled to death. And so we do these weekly reviews of what people are writing, because it's really the cutting edge of what people are talking about in Strike fandom.
And I am sure at least half of our interested readers are coming to the Substack site to read the comments, because they are so good.
Yeah, I also found I had to go back and refer to the names post I did, where I listed all the new characters inside the book to say, really, what's that about? And the post had received more than 5,000 views, Nick.
Yeah.
I was who knew? Who knew? So that's my big goal this week, is to be punch out the names post. Forgive me if it can't be anything more than what we've been doing today, which is here's what I'm offering. Please fill in the holes. Please offer your corrections. This is a community effort to raise our joined appreciation of Rowling's artistry and her meaning. Really, Rowling is operating at the highest level, other than maybe Troubled Blood. Always my thing. She's operating. We're getting into the finale here, the last 3 books,
Yeah,
and it's going to be grand. It's going to be grand.
it really is. Thank you, John, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Nick. Take care.